Good morning, history lovers. Today we are going to cover the Jewish War, the battle between Rome and Jerusalem in 770 AD. There are three principal characters I need to introduce before we jump into it. First is General Titus. He was the son of the Roman emperor. In 70 AD, Titus was given the task that several previous generals were not able to complete: crush the Jewish rebellion. Second major character is King Herod Agrippa II. He had to balance pleasing his Roman rulers and satisfying his Jewish subjects. Herod satisfied the Romans with promises, flattery, and deceit. He satisfied the Jewish community by expending large sums to build up and fortify the cities, especially Jerusalem. Herod tried desperately to avert a war with Rome. He met with Jewish warlords and religious leaders and asked them to make an arrangement with Rome. This made Herod the least popular man in Judea. By late 66, citizenry had expelled their king, and he went off to live in Rome. Our third principal character is Jerusalem. Jerusalem was many things. It was the principal place of worship for the Jews, with one room even called the Holy of Holies. It was also the center point where three Jewish warlords did battle against each other. Because it was a war zone, in addition to enclosing a sacred shrine, the walls held an enormous brothel and a very busy torture chamber. Jerusalem was located in a high defensive position and had a natural supply of fresh water. Even as the Roman forces were approaching the city, worshippers were packing Jerusalem for the Passover holidays, straining the food supply. Several months earlier, during a civil conflict between the three Jewish warlords, reserves of grain and other food supplies were destroyed in a fire set by the feuding factions. Many of the worshippers making the pilgrimage to the city brought a large quantity of sheep and other animals with them. However, this livestock was designated to be offered to God on altars at the temple. Most of the livestock was burnt as a religious tithe before it became obvious how desperate the food shortage would become. I want to show you a close-up of Jerusalem and point out some key features. Here is the third wall of defense. Here is the second wall defending the city. Here is the first wall. Notice that the temple is the largest building around for miles and the best fortified. Here's another corner of the city. Here's Herod's palace, which we already pointed out. It's vacant by 70 AD. Here's the upper city. Notice how large and spacious the homes are. Here's the lower city. Notice how much smaller and crammed together the homes are. And again, you can see that the temple is the largest, best decorated building around for miles and also very well fortified. April 70, in the first hours of the battle, the Romans had to rescue General Titus, who had almost been captured by Jewish forces that were waiting in the fields for him and had stormed out the gates to rush his forces and completely surprise the Romans by using hidden tunnels. A few days later, the Romans regained their balance and marched up to the outer walls. But they were surprised again. For years, the Jewish forces had been capturing Roman catapults and other heavy weapons and strategically placing them behind the walls of Jerusalem. For several days, the Roman attackers were crushed by flying boulders and pierced by flaming arrows. Once again, the Romans retreated. A few days later, the Romans returned with modified battering rams. The equipment now had heavy overhead protection to shield the warriors from stones and arrows. Boldly, the Romans pushed the battering rams up to the walls and started to destroy them. However, the Jewish forces in the hidden tunnels dug holes straight up and started a fire. When their carts, battering rams, and soldiers were set on fire, the Romans had to retreat again. May 66, The battle continued as a stalemate for many bloody, death-filled weeks. General Titus realized the Jewish rebels were being resupplied by the local population, and the revolution looked like it could go on forever. The Romans had almost depleted the entire region of trees to crucify 500 Judeans a day, either merchants trying to bring in goods to the city, or civilians trying to escape the battle, or soldiers captured in battle were crucified. The stench of thousands of bodies expiring in the desert heat hung over the city. The Romans used the last of their lumber to build a wall completely around the city. After a few weeks, Jerusalem was totally cut off. No more food, weapons, or rebels could enter the city. Inside the city, 500,000 starving Jews survived in diabolical conditions. One evening, two hungry Jewish soldiers, Javier and Jesse, had completed their shift and were going back to their tent. 6 days ago, Javier had cornered a large rat. The two soldiers cooked it, smothered it in sauce, and enjoyed their only meal of the month. As they made their way across Jerusalem, they caught a delicious smell. They changed their direction and followed the sweet aroma. Javier was certain they were smelling lamb chops, just like the ones his mother served the night before he left for battle. Jesse was positive he was smelling chicken, just like he enjoyed on his last vacation. The two soldiers found the house where the odor was coming from. They silently opened the door. Patiently, they walked into the kitchen, and oh no, they saw a mother with her 11-month-old infant roasting over an open fire, and the mother was devouring it. The endless battle dragged on and on and on. Then the only thing that could make a soldier even more miserable happened. It rained. Remember the hidden tunnels? Well, all that rain caused some of the tunnels to collapse, and the corner of the third wall came down on its own. Romans had open access to the city, but the dirty work was far from over. The Jewish army and irregular forces had been confiscating Roman helmets, shields, and breastplates for over a decade. As they fought between walls 3 and 2 in the pouring down rain, Roman legionnaires were packed so tightly against rebels that they couldn't tell if they were facing friend or foe. They fought and killed each other. After a few days, they breached the second wall, and they fought and killed each other. After much more pain and death on both sides, the Romans breached the first wall. July 70, after 4 months of battle, 60,000 Roman legionnaires stormed the temple at dawn. Originally, Titus was trying to preserve the temple, but decided the effort was costing him too many lives. He had the Romans set the gates on fire. Then fire spread throughout the building. In the evening, Titus ordered the fire to be extinguished and returned to his quarters. But the rebel attacked the firefighters, and the fires only grew worse. On returning the next morning, Titus again ordered the fire to be stopped. The Roman soldiers pretended not to hear him and made the fire even worse. The Roman soldiers were excited about the war being almost over and their chances to plunder gold. General Titus entered the Holy of Holies, the sacred room in the temple where it was believed that God resided. This made the Jews furious. After leaving the room, Titus ordered his centurions to beat any soldier that was spreading the fire. After months of bloody battle, the soldiers were too caught up in bloodlust and gold lust. Normally very disciplined Roman soldiers were getting tired of taking orders. Now General Titus was the least popular man in Judea. As the fire rose around the Holy of Holies, his aides had to rescue General Titus. 10,000 soldiers, civilians, and priests died at the temple steps. From the next morning on, it was no longer a battle, just a massacre. The Romans spent the next several weeks slaughtering civilians in the city's houses and in the hidden tunnels. The temple was completely torn down. Every building and wall, except for Herod's palace, was destroyed. is estimated that between 600,000 to 1 million Jews died at Jerusalem. In the next few years, there were two more uprisings that were almost as violent. But the Battle of Jerusalem had the largest effect on history and culture. Many Jews, including a small sect called Christians, saw the collapse of the temple as the end of their connection to the Jewish religion. And the rest, as they say, is history.